Welcome back, folks. I am making a very quick video on something that came up this week. I am not technically back from my break from podcasting because I intended to take a couple month break, but I might come back on. And especially about this topic, if you haven't watched the video, Pastor Tony Spell, who was arrested, I anticipate making another video because I wanted my husband to weigh in on this as well, and he wasn't able to do it this today, but we probably will do it next week. But in any event, if you are returning, you know who I am. Thank you for just being patient with me. I have been on a break, a much needed break, but I am here to talk about this. And you already know me. You know I was a prosecutor. Those who don't know me, if you're just coming in to this video, I used to be a prosecutor. I practiced in Michigan as a prosecutor, Florida as a prosecutor. I specialized in Michigan, Detroit as a prosecutor in crimes against children, particularly sex crimes. But I also prosecuted many, many, many cases involving other things such as homicide, justifiable use of force, self-defense. So in addition to that, and if you know me, you know this, my husband used to teach a lot, and he is a firearms expert. And when he taught, and it was mostly for veterans, that's when he would bring me in. I would teach the law on firearms and justifiable use of force, stand your ground law, which is this entire thing that we're going to be watching this video. The video speaks for itself. So my thumbnail says it's not self-defense. It's not. And unfortunately, the internet is going crazy with the praises for this pastor. And it is unfortunate because I would have to think that people just don't understand the law. I would hate to think that people that I know of, even that support the U.S. Constitution, that claim to be patriots, that claim to be law-abiding citizens, they are not in this sense, in the fact that they think that this pastor is justified. And if I was a prosecutor today, I would charge him all day long. So I believe that the prosecutor did the right thing, absolutely 100%, by charging this man who I find to be, after just looking at other things, some questionable things. We're not going to get into that kind of thing today. What we're going to get into is just the video, just the objective evidence that the sheriff, their office, or the local police department, whichever it is, and the prosecutor had, and this is what they're going by. So you can bring in other evidence, statements of witnesses that can testify to what the parties were saying right before, after, during, whatever, it doesn't matter. We have video. And we have a press conference that this gentleman, Pastor Tony Spell, did. So those are the two things that I'm going to be evaluating here today. So we're going to get into it and I'm going to start and stop. So, you can look at it on video anywhere. I'm taking this from, it's called The Advocate. I think it's from Texas. No, not Texas. It's Louisiana. And so I'm taking their video. You can find it. I'll link it in the description if you want to watch the whole thing, but I am going to be starting and stopping it so that I'm commenting. That's the point of this. Just so you know, if you get frustrated with people doing that, I will be doing that. All right. Oh, before I start. So when I used to assess whether, who the aggressor is, who the victim is, whether they're mutual combatants, I would always write out this continuum. So I would use V for victim, A for aggressor, M for mutual combatants, kind of in that continuum back in the day when I used to do this. I didn't have the pleasure or the luxury of having video sometimes, but not like this, with the Ring cameras and that. So I would just write it out and go through the statements and figure out who is the aggressor when in that time continuum. You're going to see the time continuum here with the video. This is very, very, very basic. So basic that it wouldn't even be used in a bar exam for lawyers. It wouldn't even be used for that. And it probably wouldn't even be used in, when back in the day when I was applying for prosecutor jobs, I was in front of a panel and there would be different scenarios that would be used, and you would be asked if you would charge, and it would be very, very complex. Not easy ones. So this is not something that would be used because this is so basic and easy to determine. So then you might be saying, no, he was justified. Well, I don't agree with you. That is not the law. Stand your ground. We're going to be talking about that. here in just a moment. The young man who is the victim, he is the victim. And just because they've had a history doesn't take it out of this aggressor continuum that we're going to be talking about here, which is just the video. It doesn't matter what happened before or after. In a sense, there are some exceptions to that, but when you have a video as clear as day as this is all that the prosecutor will need. Perhaps they can just have their younger prosecutors cut their teeth on this one, because it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Yes, a very easy win for the prosecutor. Let's go. All right, what you just saw, aggressor is running across the street at his victim. That's what you see. Pastor Tony Spell came from across the street, his property, ran across the street. Now, I know you want to interject, probably because you've seen this. Well, this young man who was on his own property was yelling at something. He could have been yelling anything he wanted. If that was the case, then, and you thought that you were in immediate threat, a threat of imminent danger, then why would you be crossing the street towards your threat? Right? That's what the prosecutor is going to do. The prosecutor is going to love the cross-examination of this man, who will likely have to take the stand. When we're dealing with justifiable use of force, self-defense, the defendant will typically have to take the stand. Now, if any of you are from Florida or you heard about the Trayvon Martin case, a lot of people like to say, oh, that was a stand your ground law case. No, it wasn't. It was just classic self-defense. I'm not going to get into it because that one doesn't even apply here. But the media can work you up in a frenzy. Absolutely. And I suspect that that's what's going to happen here, just based upon what I've seen so far in the last couple of days. So the aggressor, that's the pastor. He's been rightly charged. He's a defendant. He's going at his prey. All right. People love this part, and I see it. Oh, clearly the young man is the aggressor because he threw the first punch. So the young man, let's talk about stand your ground. All right. The stand your ground laws in Louisiana are very, very, very similar to Florida. So you do not have a duty to retreat if you are not the aggressor, if you are in the place that you have a right to be and you're not committing a crime, and the force that you use is reasonable in that context. It's justified to use to stop the threat. So perhaps the young man felt, and you can hear him yelling help. He yelled help before he even punched through the first punch. So he probably felt as though, this is my assessment, you can make your own, but as the prosecutor, if I was the prosecutor, this is based upon the evidence that I see. Yep, he's in his own yard. Maybe he was yelling things, but that doesn't negate the fact that it doesn't give the right to the pastor to come across the street and attack him as he did. And the fact that the young man threw the first punch, well, what I see is somebody that, it's imminent. This guy's coming at him. What is he going to do? But in the time continuum here, with the escalation continuum, that's how I used to describe it. When you're looking at it, somebody could initially be an aggressor and then they turn into a victim. So in these scenarios, somebody that's an aggressor, they would have to make a clear, conscious decision, and they would have to articulate it or do something in order to be removed as the aggressor. So for instance, when I used to teach, I used to say, if the aggressor is coming at somebody and then, they're mutually combating, or, and the aggressor is not winning, and they say, hey, hang on, I don't want to do this anymore. Or they say it, and then they actually take a step back and they try to retreat. And then the victim goes at them. That victim that's going at them now becomes the aggressor. So it flip-flops all the time. So when I used to do that continuum, aggressor, victim, mutual combatants. So there is a period right here where it's going to look like they're mutual combatants. And then they're not. So first off, you cannot get away from the fact that the aggressor runs across the street, and he does, in my opinion, he does not ever become a victim. He does become arguably perhaps a mutual combatant, but he remains as aggressor the entire time. The victim, like I said, saying whatever he was saying, but the victim didn't come at the aggressor, didn't come at the pastor. He stayed in his yard, and then, yes, he threw the first punch, probably because he felt the threat. When there is a threat of imminent harm, we don't know what the pastor was saying to him right then. And then he felt he had to do what he had to do, kick off his shoes, kept his phone though. He had his phone. He was recording, and then he had to defend himself. How many punches? At least 7 or 8 right there, right? To stop the threat. You're on the threat. You're sitting on the threat. So this is very similar here to Trayvon Martin, if any of you have ever heard of that case, which did not involve stand your ground, even though the media liked to say that. Stand your ground and just classic self-defense are very different. If somebody is on you, there's no stand your ground to talk about. So I was talking about stand your ground when the pastor was actually not on the victim. So that's where that would apply. When you have somebody sitting on you, there's no stand your ground to even talk about. We're just talking about self-defense. In fact, if this young man, neither one of them, to my knowledge, and we can't see in the video, had any weapons, they're just using fists as their weapons. However, if you were to introduce a different scenario, a different fact, where the victim had a weapon on him, it could be a screwdriver, it could be a knife, it could be a firearm, he might have been justified in using that, right? So let's keep going. I think he was really trying to do some damage to this young man, pulling his neck in that manner. Arguably, some could even say, was he trying to snap his neck? Did you all see the pictures of what this young man looked like after he got the beating by this pastor? Awful. The guy is yelling help. The guy is yelling help, kicking his legs. Can't do anything because this guy's on top of him. And people think that he was justified. It's unbelievable. Let me just stop right here to say this in the context of my channel, because it's very much applicable. It's very much relevant, because on this channel, I talk about pastors who believe themselves to be above the law, just like this pastor believes himself to be above the law, and all of his little minions do as well, because he had at his press conference his church behind him cheering him on. So it's very, very similar to what we're seeing happening in the context of pastors and those that surround themselves of the pastor, and they're surrounding the pastor, and the pastor may have SA'd somebody, may have abused spiritually, may have done something illegal, may have done a criminal act, and then you've got the people that are rallying behind them. So this is very, very similar. I'm glad it's in a different context so that people can kind of wake up here, because we're seeing this more and more. Would we expect to see this in the world? Yeah, because the world is full of it. But unfortunately, we're seeing pastors do these things where they believe that they are above the law, and unfortunately, people are pleased with them violating the law, and they're even going to defend it. Okay. Look at this. Look at this. And the guy runs away. So the advocate, that's the video from the advocate. So let's, like I said, my YouTube, I gotta get on YouTube. My StreamYard is not working that well for me, so I have to, hang on, let's do this. Bear with me. Here it is. Comes up really quickly. I'll grab that and add it. Oops, that was not, is that right? Yes. Sorry, folks. It takes me a minute. Share that one. This is, yes. Okay. So what we have here is his press conference. So I'm going to, why is it doing that? See, it doesn't like me today. All right, I'm going to have to get out of this one and start again. Hang on. Let me try it again. All right. Because we're going to hear what he has to say. All right. Oh, sorry about that. No, this is not well for me. Okay. I have to add it in here so y'all can see it. Okay. Now, all right, let's listen to what he has to say. This one's a short one.
And showing their support and standing in solidarity with us. I'm going to give you a statement of the events that occurred on yesterday, June the 23rd of 2026. At approximately 9 a.m., I'm out on the church parking lot. There I'm working on one of our Sunday school buses. We have a large bus fleet. We have several people that do maintenance on our buses. I was swapping out the batteries on bus number 48. By that, you have dead batteries. I'm putting new batteries on the bus. So while I'm working on our bus fleet, the individual across the street, one of the men across the street.
I'm stopping it right there. One of the men across the street, that is noteworthy. As a prosecutor, I would take note of that because he's aggressively coming from across the street to one of the individuals who are across the street. And I would use this against him. Remember, I always say your words can be used against you. And he obviously admits that there are multiple people across the street, at least two, because he says there is one of the individuals across the street. And if you've been watching this, you probably heard him also talk about an ongoing feud he has with the family. So this young man that he attacked is 20, apparently lives on that property with his parents. And so the ongoing feud is with probably the parents as well. So this defiant pastor took it upon himself, and he wasn't at all afraid. He wasn't at all scared. He wasn't in imminent danger. And why? Because he knew that there was at least one individual that he was going to confront, and ran from across the street to confront him. So in my mind, as a prosecutor, I would make that point that it's not just one person. It was at least another one was there as well. Because if he was so scared, he wouldn't have taken on that person knowing that there was another there.
Is walking up and down the shoulder parallel with the bus, which is about 100 yards to my south right now, or 100 yards to my east. And while this individual is walking up and down the shoulder of the road, he's shouting vulgarities, profanities, and very nasty words towards my person.
That's weird, towards my person. He's shouting, and the terms that he used, the word choices are very interesting to me. He says he's shouting. He's talking about the young man shouting. But then later you're going to hear him say that the person said. So if he's across the street, somebody's saying is a little bit hard to believe. Somebody shouting would be more believable. And then to my person, that's just a weird thing to say, but nothing major, but it just stood out to me as strange.
Myself. And while I'm working on this particular bus, He said, Tony, I'm quoting him. He said, Tony, I'm going to rape your wife. I'm going to rape all of your grandchildren. And he said, the next time you go out of town, I'm going to kill them. And what the F are you going to do about it?
So when I used to teach, I used to use a hypothetical, because that was the way that I would teach self-defense in hypotheticals. And I used this hypothetical when it came to justifiable use of force. If I was standing in my front yard and I had my firearm on my hip, and the neighbor that I was always feuding with just happened to drive by but stopped in front of my house and rolled down the window and said, I'm so sick of you, I'm going to shoot you next Tuesday. And if I took out my firearm and used it to stop the threat, would I be justified? And my students would all say a resounding no. So the justification that this pastor has is my hypothetical. My hypothetical has come to life. He says that he used this force that he used, not so much in those words, but in the layman's terms that he's using, because this young man who he has had an ongoing feud with said that the next time he, Pastor Tony Spell, goes out of town, that this is what he's going to do to his wife and grandchildren. So we have absolutely no quantitative date. We have no idea as to when this is. Does this fall within a imminent threat? Absolutely not. This is my hypothetical on steroids right now. And this is what he's justifying as him using the force he did, which was non-deadly force. And people have a right to use non-deadly or deadly depending upon the circumstances. This is always fact specific. Each case is fact specific. Again, if you're in a place that you have a right to be, you don't have to, and you're not committing a crime, you don't have to retreat. But this young man, he didn't have to retreat. He could stand his ground, and he did stand his ground against the aggressor. So I'm going to take him off. So that's appears to be his justification. Unfortunately for him, so he's got the video against him. He's got the statement he's made. And then, and I'm not going to even bring it up, but even in his church, he's making fun of it, saying that he laid hands on someone. It's really unfortunate that people are standing up for this person, because it's very clear that this is not justifiable use of force whatsoever. I do plan on getting into it a little bit more in another video, but it's not justified. And, you know, the only person that I saw out of my friends so far, other podcasters that have talked about this, is my friend Leach of Social Fire. And I just watched his video this morning, and I was very pleased to see that he got it right. He got it right. He called it out, and he said that this pastor does not appear to be justified, and he's not. And so I'm going to link the video so you can watch it and just view it for yourself. And I'll link Leach's video as well, so you can view that as well. So let me know your thoughts. And I'm going to come on, do a longer video with my husband, because he's going to be able to get into some of the meat of this that might be helpful for you. So talk to you soon.